Well, it's the first day of October. It's actually the first few minutes of October. It's been October for 15 minutes. But life is pretty good right now. Life is pretty good right now. Let me be quiet. Oh my god, I'm screaming and my roommates are asleep. Life is pretty good right now. That's really fucking cool because usually when I'm at school, life does not feel pretty good. I filmed this, I think at this point, 2 weeks ago, and I've already felt such a difference just in my happiness and my mental health. I talk in this video about how we can warp time for ourselves based on how we choose to spend it, which might sound crazy, but it's actually true. Time is subjective, contrary to popular belief. I think a lot of the time it helps me to be able to look at things like physics and neuroscience and psychology to understand myself better, almost to justify me doing the things that just make me happy in life in a way, probably. But you know, whatever works, works. The concept of time is a weird one. It's a scary one, especially for me. I'm really trying to just make it less scary for myself. And I think the biggest thing you can do to make time less scary is to fill it with the things you love. But that's not quite the conclusion I come to in this video. So thanks for watching or listening, and I'll see you next week. A few times a year, I find myself getting really stressed out over and over again around the same topic, which is the concept of time. I spend hours sitting at my desk every day, like most people my age do, whether that's doing homework, working, dozing off, journaling, scrolling on social media. And I just end up thinking to myself over and over about how I'm watching time pass. Like I'll be sitting at my desk and just look at my room, look outside, see the clouds moving, hear sirens in the background, think about all the instances that are going on and happening around the world, and just think to myself like, holy shit, I am currently, as I speak right now, watching time pass. And it really freaks me the fuck out. And I'm a really nostalgic, sentimental person. So I spend a lot of my time thinking about the past, which also really sucks because then I go down this rabbit hole of, well, how have I been spending my time so far? I don't feel like I've been happy enough so far. I don't think I've done enough exciting things so far. I haven't taken enough risks. I haven't been making use of my time. There's 2 months right now until I turn 21. Actually, like less than 2 months. There's like a month and a half until I turn 21, which is crazy. And that's like the whole first year of my 20s gone. And like, that's something that really fucks with me because I feel like my 20s was what I always kind of looked forward to when I was younger, as we're going to be like the golden years, the years where I really came into myself. And I really am trying to approach them that way. But at the same time, that is just really fucking scary. And I think there's a few things I've realized. One of the main ones being that I don't take enough risks and I don't put myself out there enough. And that's why I started this YouTube channel with the whole notion of I'm just going to be myself and take risks and just do my thing. A piece of advice was given to me 3 years ago now, which is crazy. When I was talking, or 2 years ago, a piece of advice was given to me 2 years ago. I was talking to an ex-employer who also happened to be a licensed therapist about how I felt like I was really risk avoidant and always played it safe. And he said, well, not taking risks is the biggest risk of all, which is such a simple statement. But I was like, fuck, that is so true. Because when you're like me and you're someone who spends their entire life pretty much avoiding anything that could put them in danger and playing everything as safe as fucking possible, what are you left with at the end of the day? You know what I mean? And I feel like the moments where I take just a little bit of risk and put myself out there a little more than I usually would end up being the ones that I think about so much and that stay on my mind at the end of the day, where like those form who we are, you know? And I think one thing that really helps me with the whole time question is to remind myself that time, as we view it as a concept in the Western world, is not actually how time works in our heads. If we never learned what an hour was, what a day was, what a week was, what a month was, if we never properly learned all of these things, we would know that during the day, there's a point where the sun rises and there's a point where the sun sets. But other than that, it would all be super relative and super subjective. And really, time passing by as a human morphs, changes, and warps itself around the emotional intensity of our experiences from moment to moment. I actually did a project on this, a year ago? Yeah, a year ago. I did a project on this a year ago, but right before I went abroad in London. I was taking a class on, it was basically like a science communications class. And I was starting to really think about this topic, and we basically had this prompt for our final project was just to literally take any scientific question, any scientific interest of our choosing, and in any format of our choice, tie together some compelling arguments from credible scientists that give us some sort of answer, if that makes any sense. So I was frustrated because I was like, I feel like no one actually knows what time is. Like, no one actually knows really what time is or really how time works. Like, when you bring in the fourth dimension things, which, like, if you don't know the fourth dimension, it's basically like humans view the world in 3 dimensions, right? Everything is like 3D for us in the physical world. You have length, width, and then depth, right? So like a 2D world would just have length and width. We wouldn't have any concept of like things being closer or farther away from us. The fourth dimension adds this other component, which is time. And time is dependent on gravity. And gravity is a force that pulls objects towards each other, right? This is turning into a science lesson. Anyway, how I like to think about this is I'm a big believer in like energetic connection. It's been scientifically proven that all humans have an energetic field like surrounding them. And I think we can alter what we're pulled towards and away from based on our emotional inclinations and our actions. Okay? You can choose to view the world in one of 2 ways. A, being a 3D world in which you just see length, width, and depth. And you see time as happening in seconds, minutes, and hours, as it being linear and calculated, and as it being separate from the human experience. So you could see us as being like human creatures with whatever spirituality, whatever thing that you believe in, living in a world that has this fixed time continuum. The problem with that version of viewing things is that you're basically just a victim of time passing. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't warp it in any way. You are just a person living within the passage of time. Okay? That's how you can view it one way. And like this is how humans are taught to think. Like as at least in the West, we're taught to think of the world as like one linear time continuum. And if the beginning of human existence started here, we are like here. And the future is here. But this doesn't exist yet. Why? Because we're here. But we're inching closer every second. Okay, that's one way you can view it. Another way you can view it is to incorporate this understanding of how an energetic field actually warps space. How we don't just live in space, we live in space-time, and space-time are not separate from one another. They are one. So time exists in a different way on different planets. And the reason for that is because those planets operate on different gravitational fields because they're not affected by other things moving in space the same exact way that Earth is. Our gravitational field is mainly being affected by the sun and the moon in kind of like one specific way. Like it's changing a little bit every year, but like it's pretty much been relatively the same, right? Okay. Humans are energetic creatures. We all have an energetic field surrounding us at all times. Now, here's where we can get a little loopy, but I just need you to stick with me, okay? The decisions we make, the actions we take, the things we do, the people we speak to, the trauma we carry, the trauma we let go of, the emotions we take on, that we share, that we express, all of that impact our energetic field. The way I like to think about it is humans are just a collection of atoms, right? We're a collection of atoms in a collection of cells that all come together to make whatever the fuck this organism is. And as we experience different emotional and physical states, we can go into higher energy states and lower energy states with those atoms, right? So like when a glass of water heats up enough, it turns into steam and those atoms are moving faster. And when it gets cold enough, those atoms slow down until they're a solid when it's ice, right? The same thing happens when humans go from one emotional state to another. We're just becoming more or less excited. And we're getting pulled more or less in one direction, just as gravity does. It's like magnetism. Like two magnets get pulled towards one another because of an energetic field, right? Okay, here's how this comes in through space-time for me. Is if the world isn't 3 dimensions and it's 4 and possibly more that we don't know about, and time is the 4th dimension affecting us, and time is dependent on an energetic field that of objects pulling one another towards each other based on their mass that we call energy, then you can say that and humans operate on an energetic field, and we have the ability to change our energetic state as we so please, then you could say that humans have the ability to change time. Now, I don't mean to change how long a minute is. I don't mean to make a minute go from 60 seconds to 61 seconds. I mean, you can make your minute longer or shorter. It's like when you're in a plank and you feel like time is just passing by slower, because it is. Time is subjective, if this makes sense. When we are in a heightened emotional state, we quite literally experience time differently. So I interviewed this guy. He's one of the only people like in the world. He's conducted some of the only real studies that exist right now on people's warped perceptions of time and what can be affecting these. This is obviously like such a hard thing to study, because how do you even measure something that is inevitably that subjective? And he basically explains how when we are experiencing more novelty, more change, and more excitement in our lives, in the moment, that time passes by really fast. We're not getting bored because we're getting all of these new signals towards our brain. So many different things are happening. The time flies by. And then in hindsight, when you look back at it, it feels like those experiences were years long. So like if you have a weekend, for example, where you're sitting on the couch all weekend not doing anything, the hours feel long, the days feel long. Then Monday comes around and you're like, oh my God, Friday was yesterday. But if you have a weekend where you go travel and you go meet a bunch of new people, you go do a bunch of new things, you try something out, you start seeing someone new, you go on a new date, you try all these like new magical experiences. Monday comes around and you're like, holy fuck, Friday feels like it was years ago. And this is basically just in a nutshell how we can hack the human experience to make our lives longer. So the life of one 80-year-old can actually be, perception-wise, like twice as long as the life of another 80-year-old, because they prioritized novelty and excitement. Okay, so where does this come into play for me? Being someone who can be super avoidant of a challenge, something scary, something dangerous, I feel like I literally just watch the weeks and years fly by. And I feel like I spend my days, or I've had periods of time where I've spent my days doing things that are like relaxing and comforting, like the same habitual routine, eating the same foods, sitting and watching a show, staying inside, avoiding the world. And as I do these things more and more, life actually just becomes more dreadful because, well, I'm underusing my brain. Time is passing by slowly in the moment and quickly in hindsight. Literally, it feels like I'm watching my life go by. But more than anything, one thing I've realized so much recently that maybe is just so simple and so obvious, but was such a revelation for me, was we really need to challenge ourselves and we really need to take risks. And I don't mean that in a way of like, and I know that sounds obvious, but I don't mean that in a way of like, you should challenge yourself, you should take risks, like, you never know what could happen, da 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 da. No, like, fundamentally, for the well being of the human experience, like, as humans, we are not meant to be safe all the time. We are not meant to be okay all the time. We are not meant to be content all the time. We are not meant to be put in our place. And like, I feel like everyone's always talking about the mental struggle across Gen Z and how our generation just seems to be particularly impacted by mental health issues. And there's obviously just a multitude of reasons for this, and they probably are all right in some capacity. But I think one thing that's not brought into the conversation a lot that we're really missing is that, like, we're just not fucking putting ourselves out there and we're just not challenging ourselves enough. Because I feel like one thing social media does is it's so oriented towards like my night routine, my morning routine, paying so much attention to what other people are doing in their lives that we forget to focus on finding novelty within ourselves. And I feel like as well, we as a generation are so focused on finding ways to like hack challenges, you know? Like AI is making just everything require like basically zero brain power now. And I feel like even in like the college world and the business world, people are just always finding ways to kind of like push past the system so that they just don't have to use any brain energy. Like half of my friends who are in internships were just finding ways to just like sit on their ass while they didn't have to do anything. And like a lot of the time, like people want to go into jobs like banking, consulting, like, or just other straightforward paths that make it so that you can carry through with the tasks, you know, you're meant to take off on a checklist and follow through with orders and not actually have to use any creative brain power to get anything done in any sort of way. And that's not to say that I don't respect people for going into those professions and working hard. I'm saying that I feel like we've lost the art of putting yourself out there for the sake of putting yourself out there and being excited about life, like feeling vitalized by an unknown, feeling vitalized by taking a risk and just seeing what happens. You know what I mean? And I'm like a huge victim of this. Like I always would just rather do the safe thing. And I think it comes because like you're avoiding a more dramatic, energetic state. But there's two options, which is like, it's all out of fear, right? And fear is like, it is a change in your energetic state. You're going to be in fight or flight. You're going to be really, really uncomfortable. And we have like a fear of fear. Like we just avoid anything that can be remotely scary, whether that's for the sake of avoiding failure, avoiding discomfort, something new. For me, it's all the above. And I think one way to combat this is just to remind ourselves. One way that I'm combating this is I'm just trying to reimagine my view of it and say, well, what if it went right? And to be really excited around it and to stop viewing any potential situation of me being uncomfortable as a threat. Because the happiest people I know are the people who set goals and work their asses off. And I feel like, and take risks. And I feel like everyone who is not in that boat looks at these people and just sees discomfort and is like, oh my God, that can never be me. Discomfort doesn't equal unhappiness. Like, if you are uncomfortable all day and then you go to bed at night knowing you're a little bit closer to a goal, long term, how can you be unhappy? You know what I mean? And I also feel like I'm trying to remind myself, I mentioned at the beginning of this, that I'm in my 20s. So weird. And I want to use them right. And I think I'm really just facing this fear of being uncomfortable because these are the years for me to take risks and for me to put myself out there and work fucking hard and be unbalanced in everything I do. And I just have to remind myself of that. We also just have so much health guru bullshit going around. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like no woman actually, like, I don't know. We're also concerned about hitting every single step of our health and beauty routine as women in a day that we forget to do the important things, which is like, I don't know. I've had experiences in my life where I've not gone out, not tried a new experience, not done all these other things because it didn't fit into my routine. And like, that's not health. That is self-sabotage. Like, if you're 20, your job is to be doing scary things. Your job is to be taking risks. And I think that's just what I'm trying to remind myself of. It's like, my job is to put myself out there. My job is to take risks. My job is not to be safe. And like, no one I admire in my life played it safe. In the way of no one I admire in my life avoided hard work and avoided taking risks. But it's just a scary thing to admit to myself. Because it's like, now that I'm really admitting to myself that I need to take risks and I need to have more courage and be uncomfortable more of the time and put myself out there more, it's just between me and actually doing it, you know? But I have some things on my mind for this week that I want to do. Okay. That is my rant for today. That's my rant for today. I also want to mention that I'm trying to be more habitual about this too, because I'm like, well, how can I make taking risks and going out of my routine, how can I make that habitual? Which actually seems very counterintuitive. But at the same time, I more that I'm trying to get rid of habits that promote this lifestyle of me being risk avoidant and playing everything safe. And just not experiencing life. Like, I feel like I'm trying to just face my brain more. And when I was younger, I got into this big habit of just having YouTube or Netflix playing at all times while I do all tasks, which actually, now that I say that out loud, sounds literally insane and so detrimental to my mental health. But like, I've genuinely just done this for the past 5 years. I want to say, like, will never brush my teeth, wash my face, do the dishes, make food, nothing without something playing. And this week I've been running a bit of an experiment, which is like, what if I just kind of sat with my thoughts and just kind of let them run their course? And sometimes I'll play music, but like, at least when I'm playing music, it's not like taking up my whole brain for entertainment, you know? And my mind feels so much clearer and I feel so much more capable. So that's my update for this week. And I'm just sick and tired of not living up to my full potential. And so I hope I can look back on this in a few years and be like, period. That was the start of a new era. And I did take risks. And here I am. Because the scariest thing of all is laying on your deathbed and wishing you took more risks. And I know there's so many people who do say that on their deathbed. Holy fuck, is that terrifying? That's scarier than the threat of anything else I'm avoiding. So, there you go.